Greetings, it's Moaz here at ArchiCAD Training Facebook. Today I'm going to talk about one of the sensitive issues that we need to discuss about ArchiCAD, which is the rendering using CineRender, which is never been like detailed the way it should be. So I'm gonna use like one of the projects that I've been got from one of the colleagues or friends in Sweden, and he's quite just like this residential project, so we can do the most out of it, so we can learn how to render using the CineRender engine. In this tutorial I'm going to try to bridge the gap between the computer graphics and all the other terminology that are found in the CineRender rendering engine, and how the BIM guys or the architects, or regardless on the level that they are working, whether they are sole practitioners or whether they are like in a larger sized offices or construction companies, it's going to be much easier for them to understand what's going on, how we can do and use CineRender efficiently. I'm going to focus about like 3 main objects here in this tutorial. The first one of them, it's going to be lighting. So we have to discuss lighting sources, how it's going to work. And then I'm going to move into the render settings. And like in a tiny part of the render settings, I'm going to talk about the physical camera. It's going to be a good part of it. And then last but not least, I'm going to go for building, or it's not building, it's actually materials or surfaces, how according to the way how ArchiCAD using the terminology for these 3 things. So we're going to talk about lighting, render settings, and then we're going to talk, and in the render settings we're going to go a little bit for the physical camera, and then we're going to go to the surfaces or the materials accordingly actually, because when you go to computer graphics software, you're gonna refer to the surfaces as materials. Meanwhile here we're gonna refer to it as surfaces in ArchiCAD. So it just depending about the terminology. So let's get started. First, we have this project, like simple 2-story building. I think it's a house, I'm not sure about it. First thing you're gonna notice here that we have this like tinted area from the above and something like from the below here. This is usually called the safe screen. You can find the configuration that goes with that thing if you go to document and then creative imaging, and then you can go to here, render safe frame or safe screen, as just said. Actually, I just created a like bunch of shortcuts that I'm gonna use during this video tutorial. It's up to you if you want to use it or if you're gonna like use your own. It's simply it's not a secret. So if you go here to options, and then we go to work environment, and then we choose this keyboard shortcuts, we're gonna end up in this box here. We can go to keyboard shortcuts, and then we will go to words. Where are the commands? The rendering is will be found. We're gonna go to creative imaging here, and then you can see what I've just like have an assigned a couple of shortcuts here, keyboard shortcuts. So you can find here a render marquee region, which is like one of the good features of ArchiCAD rendering is here. So we can go for Control Alt M, and then of course we have to do a marquee before that, so it will just be activated, and then render marquee region and crop. Yep, I didn't do anything for this one. The main one that we're going to spend the whole of our time working with in this tutorial is here, show hide photo rendering. So we can go for Control Alt R, so you have to memorize this as long as you're just working with me here or just watching this tutorial. And then we're going to go to render safe frame, which is this one here, the 12. All this one is going to go and do is just let this one here, this safe frame appear in this area, and or like we can just like take it off. So this is the purpose of it. I'm gonna say why this is here, and I believe that's it. Those are just the and yeah, and it, for this one is we're gonna use this Surface Painter, which is one of the good reason or one of the good additions here in ArchiCAD version 19, because it's gonna be with a good use for us during this tutorial. Let me just do another check. No, I don't think we've got any other more. So let's get back here. So again, if I'm gonna like to use this this safe frame, all I'm gonna use is go F12, so it's gonna appear or disappear. Now the main reason behind using this, so the main reason behind using this safe frame is that you see this area here. We're gonna know that the picture that's gonna be rendered is just have the contents that appear here inside this one here. Sometimes if you go and render the picture and we want something, let's say like something in this area here or in this area here to be applied or to be seen in the final render, it's not gonna happen. Why? Because it's not in the boundaries of the picture or of the image that we need to go and render. So now let's do the first things first. Actually, I'm gonna go and go to the render settings. I know I first talked about lighting, but I mean in this tutorial we're gonna go into two main types of rendering. We're gonna talk first about the external rendering or exterior rendering, because it's gonna be the easiest and we can like manipulate and play more with it. It's gonna be much easier than the second type. The second type is gonna be the internal or the interior rendering, which is gonna like have different scenarios and different means in order to just get it done. So let's go and see what we can do in that. So first we're gonna go to the Control-Alt-R. This is what I've just like punched down here on my keyboard in order to get to those photo rendering settings. Most of the time people will just get intimidated of this scene here. Actually this is not the default scene that they're gonna see. They're gonna see this one here, which is gonna take this effect, or it's gonna be much easier because there will be like pre-settings or presets that people is gonna go and choose. If I'm just like uncheck here the detailed setting, this is what we're gonna see the first time we are going to render a new project that comes with ArchiCAD. So well, I mean they are good settings here, but they are not like thorough and detailed, so they can just give us the control that we're looking for in order to make like a really great or like a real life rendering image that we're looking for. So actually I'm not gonna go and work with those ones here in this tutorial. I'm gonna go just for the like the configuration that meant to be done here. And I don't need the preview here. This preview is just like it would not get like most of the settings or most of the detailed settings that are available here inside this those available settings here there. So that's why we're gonna go and choose the review like another methodology. I'm gonna just like speak about like in very detail, so don't worry about that. Okay, so we're gonna start first by I'm just gonna give like a general methodology in order to go and understand those settings over here and see how much they will affect the look that we are just seeing in the project that we are dealing for. However, before we get into those settings here, we have to make sure that our materials here, all of them are just consistent, and before that we have to create a camera. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details about how to create a camera. I'm going to assume that you are you've been there for quite a while in ArchiCAD and know how to use the camera, how to create one and place it over there. So that's why I'm gonna just assume that you must, it should be there, the camera created for every single scene that you have to go and work with or you want to be rendered in ArchiCAD. And then, if like for due diligence, I'm gonna suggest that this camera would have its own, like its own view, so we can just like save as much as we can from that cameras or from those cameras, and it's gonna be much easier for us when we're gonna go to the final stages of working in our project and create our layouts and get it printed out or just send to the customers or whatever you want to do with it. Anyway, so let's get back here into the photo rendering settings and see what we can do from here. Like first and foremost, we're gonna go into like the logical sequence on how to work with those. What are those? There are a lot of technologies here. Some of them we're gonna use, some of them we're gonna just like ignore as it never existed before here in this engine, because they're not gonna make that difference in making like state-of-the-art rendering. It's just there. You might need to use it like someday, but I mean, but in such a short tutorial, I'm not gonna go and like spread it out and talk much about it. So let's go to the more important things that we might need to start with. Okay, first we have to define the light adjustments. So light adjustments, I mean, we have to think about it here for a second. We are now here having this exterior scene that we need to render. So do we need a sunlight? Yes. What is the intensity of the sunlight we need it to be? I'm not gonna say like 150 is something great or this is like the default value that you have to choose over here, but I'm gonna say that you can start with 100%, okay, and then increase it in combination with other things like we're not gonna use lamps because we don't have lamps at this point because we're just like depending on the lights of the sunlight. We can use this one if you want like to make exterior shot that goes like in the like night at night, because at night we're gonna use like lamps that go in spotlights that will be pointed out to the building, and then make sure it's gonna like spread or cast the needed light. So just put that in mind. I didn't do any night shots in this tutorial, so what I'm gonna keep now for the moment is the sunlight. And we can keep the illuminating surfaces. This is good things to have because I know we're not gonna like have something like asphalt or like pavement, which is gonna illuminate or gonna make an illumination and produce light. No, but we're gonna use what is called like the HDRI, which we're gonna see next here in the environment. So sometimes, or if you are using, or if you're gonna use the HDRI as like one of our lighting sources, we're gonna have to make sure that illuminating surfaces is there. Again, we're gonna use the sunlight, we're gonna use an illuminating surfaces. The values here, the 100%, 150%, 150% for each. This is not like the sure value or like the final value here. However, it's gonna be like a combination. We can just like increase the sunlight and reduce illuminated surfaces, increase both of them, reduce one and increase the other. It depends. I mean, you are the judge, or you can just judge what's going to be best, what's going to be best for those two for the combination of those two settings over here. And then we're gonna jump to the environment, not the shadow casting. We're gonna go to the environment and choose what are the environment that we're gonna need at the moment to just like have some light, or it's gonna be like the light source of our scene. ArchiCAD is gonna give us like two sources of lights here. We can go ahead and choose physical sky. We can go ahead and use HDRI sky. Now, which is, or what's gonna be the best time or best way to choose every one of those two. Actually, we can go to the rule of thumb for me is the physical sky. I'm gonna go ahead and use this setting over here. If we need to make like a clear sky, or like sky with a little bit of like clouds or other effects, we might use the physical sky. However, we can use the HDRI sky. I mean, if we have like a ready or like HDR image that is ready to go for us, and we can just download it from the internet, so we can produce or have like more like stronger source of light that would add more light to our environment here. And by the way, if we choose HDRI light, it's gonna be considered as illuminating surfaces, and though we have to make sure here that this 150% is the total total energy that is being produced by this HDRI sky to this scene that we are now going to use. Where we could get like HDRIs, I mean, it used to be hard to make like HDRIs before, because it was like gonna need more effort. Like we have to go for a photographer that who has like a professional camera, and then take that camera to take that image to Photoshop, and then do like to convert it to an HDRI value. Now most of the like, let's say, advanced mobile phones, or if you go like not that professional cameras, new digital cameras can just like produce regular HDRI images. We don't have to be like that picky about that, but we can go ahead and we can just go for Google and go for open footage website. I think it's .net, and then we can go here and download HDRIs. Well, they have really good, nice, like photos that we can choose. For me, I'm gonna choose like one of them. I think the one that I downloaded earlier was something of like this one over here, or this one over here. I'm not sure. We're gonna see in the image in a little bit. So let me get back to ArchiCAD. I mean, when you're gonna get an HDRI image, first of all, you can go ahead and choose this one here. You have to tell ArchiCAD where is that image. Well, there's like a small trick here, that after you download that HDRI image, you have to go ahead and put that image here, like in a folder, and that folder you have to go to ArchiCAD project settings or library manager, and in this library manager you have to link that folder, which has this path here in the folder in the Explorer, regarding you're using a PC or a Mac. So after pointing out to that HDR, this is the way that we're gonna use it. We're gonna say load other picture from here, and then we're gonna go to libraries. In the libraries, we're gonna find that attached right here for us, and we can just choose it and say okay for it. It's gonna be like a large, very large image, like 3,000 pixels by something like this. Is almost the half of it. We can get back by using this button here to where to the upper level where we've just been, and then we can see here like the sky visibility. We can just like increase the image brightness. Make sure here, if you increase this image brightness over at this point, it's gonna be increased. I mean, like say this one here, which is here, is 5. If you're gonna get back here, this 5, we're gonna be 5 like at 100%. If we're gonna make it like here 150, it's gonna be like 5 times 1.5 of its real value. So just put this in mind, that we don't need to like play a lot with those issues. There will be other places we can just like do the balance for the black points and white points and the whole brightness of this image in the scene. We can just go ahead and then use sky luminance, which is something that we're really going to use. So this is a point that we don't want to skip. And then the sky reflection is going to be applied, so we can see the sky reflection on the on the glass. There will be another way to manage that on the glass when we're going to talk about the materials. However, for this at this point, we can just put this as is right now. Now, after we're gonna do this, we're gonna get into another issue here, which is the rotation. You can play with how this picture is going to be viewed or projected according to our camera that you are using here, and we're going to use this two values. We're not going to use the X value, we're going to just use the Z value in order to just let that picture, the HDRI picture, move left or right according to degrees using this area over here. So again, those are the points that we just we're talking about here at the HDRI. The HDRI is going to be a little bit harder than just go ahead and choose the physical sky. I know that the physical sky have all those more issues. We can activate clouds. We can just put sky. In my opinion, I mean, what am I gonna do when it's gonna go to physical sky? I'm gonna use the physical sky under one circumstance, which is if I'm gonna go and alter the whole color of the physical sky by one of the other pictures that are just already there using Photoshop. But this will help me do more post rendering work using physical sky. So this is the time that I'm gonna use the physical sky to go ahead and render using a physical sky. So after we are done with the environment, we're gonna go now to the effects. In the effects, I'm not gonna do anything here. You can see here all those, even the color mapping at this point, I can just go ahead and uncheck it because I don't want to use any of them. Real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and say something about almost every one of them here except for the color mapping, because it's gonna need more explanation, and it's gonna it's gonna be much easier to talk about it when it comes to when the time comes for it. So let me just not talk about the color mapping. So we're gonna start with ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is a cheap feature of producing realistic shadowing, or the when let's suppose one of the chairs is put on the floor. Ambient occlusion is gonna help you showing this element is attached to the floor. Let's say two walls are joined together, it's gonna put small line or tiny line of tint over that over the edge of those two walls, just to show it's real. I'm not gonna use it. I mean, there are more better methodologies to do that, so that's why I'm gonna go ahead and not use the ambient occlusion. Caustic is one of the features that we can use to, if we are doing studio rendering or under the water renderings. If you have that scenario in BIM, I don't think so. We are doing here BIM, so we just need to the most realistic photos to be there. We don't care about getting extra realistic about or having more effects like caustics. So we're not going to talk about something like that. CineRender is gonna go ahead and do the it's gonna give a cells in the rendered image. So I'm not gonna go but work with it at this point. Let's move to color correction. Color correction is that you can do a little bit of part of your Photoshop of post rendering. You can do it with the rendering or within the rendering, so you can just increase the gamma, do some color correction, or do color channel altering. So you can do that while you are rendering your photo. So that's why I'm not going to use that one, at least at the moment. Like the depth of field, it can just like make it like a focus of your camera on some of the issue or some of the objects that you have in your scene, and blur the other things. It's just like we can do that in Photoshop in a second, instead of like adding this here and let the renderer do it after it's finishing the render. It's going to be like the same time. So I would say let's go and do that in Photoshop. It's going to be much easier. Lenses and filters is going to give like that flares or like small lensing issues if you're looking to the sun. We are not going to use this one here, and then we're going to go next to vignetting or vignetting. Actually, it turns out the right way to say that is vignetting. It's going to like take the borders or like the four corners of your image and like dim them out and make them like more into black or like gray. It's a feature, it's up to you. I mean, if you're gonna use it, you can use it here, or you can go ahead and do that in Photoshop as well. Then we're going to use the white model. White model is like a small feature or a simple feature for any architect who doesn't want to go into the whole tutorial like this one here and learn how to do things with CineRender. He can just like tick this out and he is done, because it's going to turn everything into white and then apply the ambient occlusion with it, so he can just see the edges of his model. So we're not going to do that thing here. Unless you prefer, of course. So you can just like uncheck this detailed settings, and it's going to be much easier to take it as like one of those preferences or predefined preferences for the CineRender rendering methodologies. Distant fog, we can just like add fog, so we're not going to use this one here as well. So that's why I'm telling you that the effects here, it's either like designed for its counterparts in Cinema 4D, or it's just like to add simple or fast effects to the model while we're just rendering. But I mean, there are like alterations, like there's like better ways to do that. So that's why I'm not going to do anything here with the effects, at least at the moment, except for the color mapping, as I told you before. So we're going to go back and talk about that. Then the next step, which is the best step or like the most important step to do our work here in ArchiCAD, it's going to be the global illumination. Global illumination is the make it or break it issue that help us do the best rendering or like make our rendering to be more realistic and most realistic in a way or another. But I mean, global illumination is we have to pay a really good attention to global illumination. Global illumination actually, and especially when we get back to the interior rendering. So I'm gonna just like speak a little bit of it right now for the global illumination, and then I'm gonna go back and speak like more in details when we get back into the internal rendering. Actually, what's gonna happen when we're gonna let ArchiCAD start the rendering process is that ArchiCAD is gonna like like CineRender. So how global illumination is gonna work is, first it's gonna take the light source that is available there, and then the light source it's gonna have in addition to our eye. Our eye actually is here attached to this camera. Okay, so like there will gonna be like a ray or like that goes from the camera. I'm trying here to be like as much realistic as possible, and it's gonna see at this point here, is there like a way that the source of the light can give a light and be seen by this area here. Like let's say that in another way, this camera is going to check this point here and see that is this point able to see the light or the source of light that's going to affect that image. If the answer is yes, it's going to go ahead and give it like a light value, which is going to be like as much as the one that is going to be assigned to that light source. And then it's going to check another point and another point and another point. Let's say like it's going to check this point. This point is not going to be able to be seen directly, I mean, by the let's go ahead and do this arrow here, and this one here is not going to be able to seen directly, this point, by the light source. So what it's going to do is like it's going to take this point out and dimmed this light by half or by like a specific value of number. So it's going to be not as lit as the point that could be seen directly from the source light. After that, it's going to be done. The next step, it's going to see like, okay, well, the light, well, when it comes here, is it going to be here or it's going to bounce? Okay, so according to this bounce, okay, one bounce is, this is the light, it comes to this area here and then it bounces. Where the question is where it's gonna be bouncing to. Actually, it's gonna be bouncing all over according like to some of the values that we're gonna choose or that we're gonna define here in the global illumination settings. Okay, so when it comes to global illumination, first thing we're going to check is the methodology. The methodology that we are working here is in global illumination. I mean, we are not allowed like too much. We are just having the IR-QMC and then IR alone and then QMC alone. Now we have to think about those two methodologies. Like the IR is standing for irradiance cache. Irradiance cache is like one of the algorithms that is just used to make a perfect, clean images. Meanwhile, the other way, QMC is quasi. It's QUASI Monte Carlo. So quasi Monte Carlo is intended to use or intended to produce images that are not that clean. Well, the first question is like, why do we have a methodology that could produce a non-clean method of images? Well, actually, it's just because of one reason. This image would take sometimes like an hour to be finished. Well, sometimes we need to preview, or we have like a preview quality of our images. So we can just use at that point the QMC without using the IR. Meanwhile, the final images, we're going to go ahead and use the IR methodology. At this point, we're going to use the IR because, I mean, I have like a different plans in order to explain that out when we're going to do the real rendering sessions like in this like ahead in this tutorial. So after setting this method here, we're going to go next and see and set here the amount of like the times that we can just have for bouncing, for the light to be bounced in the image. We have here the diffuse depth. The more, I mean, usually it could be one. If it could be one, you're gonna end it up with a like a very dark images, because the light is going to bounce only once. It's not going to be able to illuminate all the surfaces, and especially this is going to be much more useful when you're going to do the internal renderings. So the light was not going to be bouncing a lot. So the more the light bounces, the more the illuminated surfaces is going to be lit up by the light bounces that we have there. So at the moment, we're going to leave everything is, and then we're going to go ahead and say, okay, for the first, I mean, if you're going to put this one here like as one, on only one, then we're gonna end up with just applying primary intensity. Why? Because the light is gonna be bouncing. So this is the light, this is the bounce. So this ray here and this ray here will be forming the full bounce. The full bounce, this is the light here. Okay, and this is the material, all the surface, and this is the bounce. The primary intensity is this ray here. How much it's gonna be having percentage of light energy, and the secondary intense is that when this light bounces off, it's going to be the secondary intensity here, how strong it's going to be and how much light and energy of the light it's going to be assigned to this ray over here. So how do we have to think about this one here? Think it about this way. Sometimes we need the primary intensity to be strong, okay? So we can do that using the value over here, the 100, which is very good. And then we can take the secondary intensity like into more value. Why? Just to be able to illuminate, and like it's not going to be the same strong or same strength as we're going to use at the primary intensity, but it's going to be important to just like do more illumination. And then we're going to use the gamma. Actually, the gamma, we have to pay special attention to the gamma. It's going to be having the 1.8 value as long as you're using a PC, and it's going to be having 2.2 value as long as you're using a Mac. What is the gamma? The gamma is like a ratio that was used or created by the monitor manufacturers since they just created the screens at the early days of computer manufacturing and working on. It was just like to correct the same amount of current, like electric current, that goes into the screen, so it could produce the same amount of light it should be. So there was like always deviation. This deviation is corrected using the gamma. Forget about the technical issues. The gamma will just like give more illumination to the whole scene. It's not like for just a specific light source. No, it's for the whole scene. So just keep in mind, guys, that gamma is a value. Put it 1.8 or 2.2. The more value you can just give to the gamma, it's going to illuminate the scene. The less light is going to dim or like make it more dark or much darker sometimes. It depends on the scene. And after we are setting the general, we're going to go to irradiance cache. Irradiance cache, now we were just like talking here about the IR, which is irradiance cache. Of course, if you're going to choose QMC, there will not be any irradiance cache, which is like reasonable here. So we're gonna, after putting here the IR and setting the general settings here, we're gonna jump to the irradiance cache. In the irradiance cache, we're gonna go and see here general. In the interpolation method, we're gonna use the least square, which is gonna produce the least amount of like shadows. Let's say the least amount of noise that's gonna appear while using the global illumination. And then we're gonna go to record intensity, and then at this point, I mean, we're gonna use it just like, we can just put it like low or whatever, like put it at like preview level. We don't, because we don't, at this point, we don't want to have a lot of value here because it's going to take like much time. And then we're going to go for smoothing. Just make sure that it is like weak or minimal, or we can use it medium. Those things that I'm talking about are like the record intensity. I'm not going to be able to like explain it right at the moment. We're going to explain it like more advanced or like a more practical example ahead in this video when we're going to get to the internal rendering. So just keep those in mind. What are the values that we can just use now? And then for the cache refinement, it's gonna be like we can just like leave it as is right at the moment. We're not gonna get into that details until we get into internal rendering features. So, and then we can go to details enhancement. We're not going to do anything because we're not doing any internal rendering at the point. So those are the internal cache, irradiance cache issues. Then we're going to get back to sampling. In the sampling, we're going to just have a look at the stochastic examples. Stochastic examples, simply put, is, let's say this is the light sources again, which goes to the surface, okay, and jumps. Okay, now when it jumps, how many times or like how many like stochastic samples, those are stochastic samples here, is gonna be over here. So the more stochastic samples that we get, the more like illumination is gonna we have at the end of the image, and the more accuracy for those stochastic samples, the like finer transition between lights gonna be have it's gonna go into be in this image or in this render. And then we're gonna jump right to the radiosity maps. You will, I mean, this is one of the important things that you have to learn. You don't need to know what exactly is the radiosity maps, but it's gonna be on all the way, all the time, all the renders you're gonna do, it should be checked out. Please guys, do not leave this one here uncleared or unchecked. Go ahead and check it all the time. What's gonna happen with this point, we are gonna see now when the render is gonna start, it's gonna take like two phases. The first phase here, it's gonna be making the calculations. Okay, the calculations of the GI or global illumination. This is the one we're talking about here. And then we're gonna ended up by the rendering or the real rendering for that photo. Now, when you're gonna go for using radiosity map, after it's gonna doing the calculations here, it's gonna save it into a cache. This saving will gonna save us a lot of time if we're gonna do another render and another render again and another render again in this photo. So please just keep this one checked all the time. Okay, and then we can just check this one here. We can, well, forget about it, just like we're not gonna get into it. You can just like put this value if you have glass or mirror optimization. If you need to do that, we can just like give this like a value over 50 or over 60. It's not gonna do a lot in our scene. It's I mean, we can use that just if we are having very sophisticated scenes, interior scenes specifically, we can just like do that one and raise the value here. Now, after we're done with the global illumination, we're gonna jump here to the, we can go to the physical render, we can jump to the options. Let me first stop with the options here. At the general options here, do we need to have transparency in our render? Yes. Refraction? Yes. Reflection? Yes. Of course, we need all of these. However, please just put in your mind that we're gonna use all, or we're gonna need our CineRender to do all these at the final, and just the final time that it's going, I mean, at our final render, simply put. So the one that I need you to know about is the one here at the ray threshold, how much we want, or how much levels we want our like light to keep going into our model. Like say the light hit this glass here, which is like the first level of those 15. We left it up now with a 14 in this setting. And let's say that there's like a door over there, and this light's gonna hit that door. Do you want to like to continue to level 2? So we're gonna end up here with 13, and then the next level and next level and next level. 15 is pretty much good. If you go ahead and see like the default level is gonna be like something like between 3 and 4. So I'm just putting 15 in I mean, in case of we just like have a lot of glass or a lot of surfaces that the light's gonna need to penetrate, so that's why I'm putting here like a high value. Ray depth, it's the same actually, but this one here is specifically for glass. Sometimes like if we have like shelves that are made of glass and we need those shelves to be like seen through, sometimes we're going to need this ray depth to be activated here. Same thing is for reflection depths, how many times the light ray is gonna bounce or like be reflected, like the way if you are looking into two mirrors against each other, you're gonna see yourself like many times. This one here tells how many times you're going to be able to see yourself. Uh, Global brightness, we're not going to talk about that. We don't need it. And generate alpha mask for environment. We're not going to need that as well. Then we're going to jump into anti-aliasing. You will see here like this anti-aliasing is dimmed. Why? Well, this is because we are using a physical render. I'm gonna just like jump into the physical render in a second. However, the anti-aliasing, I just need something here to be put, which is the filter. Now those filters gonna help the anti-aliasing do its job much perfectly. The anti-aliasing is like keeping those area not to be jagged and along their way here, so they won't like appear in this way here pixelated. It's gonna be like just straight, and this filters here make that happen more much faster. So the one that I choose all the time is sync. It proved that it's always like help doing the again, it helped doing the anti-aliasing issue much faster, and actually the accuracy is not going to be determined by that filter, but I mean it's just like for doing things more faster and more realistic. Now we're gonna get. I'm gonna leave the grass at the moment. We may like just get back to it. I mean, when we get to the grass thing, we're gonna get back now to the physical render. Well, the physical render now, the most issues or the most important issue that I need to talk about is the physical render options, which are like the sampler here, adaptive, progressive, fixed. We're gonna use always adaptive, progressive, and fixed something else. And so we're going to use adaptive, and this will take care of the anti-aliasing, the one that were just like dimmed out here, the anti-aliasing issues. You're going to find out that they are just here, the infinite, and they're going to be here like just set up automatically for us. And then we're going to go for sampling quality. We can just see here low, we can see medium, we can put a custom. To be honest, just let CineRender take care of the sampling quality, and so that's why I'm going to choose automatic. Another one really important settings that we have to take about here, like to take care for here, is the shading error threshold. Uh, at the point it might look like the more we increase this value here, it's gonna be better for us, which is actually wrong. It has to be like the less we can give to this value, it's gonna be better for us. What this shading error threshold does mean, it means that when the light casts the shadows on on another surface, it used to be grainy. This grainy is the noise actually that we have in the shading. So the less we can give to this value here, the more like intact shadows and the more lighter shadows, the more soft shadows that we can just obtain here at this point. So that's why, I mean, we can go ahead and give this one here like no less than 5. So at this point, I'm not going to give it 5. I might give it like 50 or 60 or 10%, whatever. But I mean, I'm not going to give it 5 until I'm just like reach the final rendering point. Okay, I think I'm happy now about the quality of the rendering that I'm gonna obtain. It's just like an initial rendering. So let me just like go ahead and do a render, like, or a test render for this photo. Of course, I'm not gonna let you wait until this one here is done. So I might need to do some fast forwarding for this image. So let's wait and see. All right, we can see here that we have a really great model. The materials are been done fine. The lights are great. I can tell here that the lights are really awesome. We can save this model out to be like, I mean, just to take care of this area here. So it can just like be replaced by another photo in Photoshop or like or other programs like GIMP. If you don't have to go and buy Photoshop, it's up to you guys. But I mean, at the moment, I think the lighting is great. Now I think you're gonna love what I've done in order to like just like do this tutorial much faster and much easier to be understand. Actually, I don't need to say that right now. What I've done actually to just like ease the things for you guys is just like creating my own samples here, my own ways of making rendering in ArchiCAD much easier and like very um, helpful for you. You don't have to go and reinvent the wheel and like I mean I just did the explanation only once, so let's get back and see what I've done. What I've done here is like I created external, interior, or internal, whatever, preview views. However, um, sometimes, I mean, not in this case, or like sometimes when we're gonna go and see the the internal or like some kind of more sophisticated, let's go ahead and get this one here, like external views, like high, or we can do that with grass. Well, we can do the grass later. So my point is, again, is um, I I just created the most or the best um, settings here that may suit the most scenarios that we can have in order to create really good images in using CineRender. However, it make I mean, we may sometimes need to alter those. So I'm gonna go ahead and explain what I've done into these configurations so we can get those cool images after this one is gonna be done. Okay, so we can see here now that we really have like nice shadows here, nice transition. The this like trees here that are reflected over the glass are giving the glass a very realistic view. This I mean, the material is like, it's not that fancy, but we can go ahead and change it. I just make that change this one here on this material here before we before I started this tutorial. The inside things here, it's like been there just before I do that. However, we can just go ahead and see what I've done into those settings that I just like assigned to this view and let it go. Actually, we have here for the external. Let me go get them back here. So we have here this is me. My name is Muaz Najjar, so that's why I just put that here. So external views, physical sky, high with grass. What I mean by high is like high defined or high settings with high values, so it just like give a high quality of an image. You can see like we have external views, physical sky, that means this one here is going to be blue, one without grass, one with grass. So let's just like try this one again here. I'm sorry, those two. Let's try this one here with grass and see how it's going to look like. So render. Sometimes the grass is going to take like longer to be rendered. So let's wait and see. Okay, so we can see now that it's like a perfect um, um, perfect grass over here, perfect shadows, perfect glazing. Um, well, the paint here is look a little bit funny, but I mean it's okay. We can just like create another new material, so we can just handle that out or like change the material here. It's just like playing with the material setting, so we can get the best results. However, we can see here like it took only 4 minutes to do that. I know that you just saw that very fast it forwarded. I mean, but it's just like for making it much easier to see what's going on, how did it happen when we just like uh, rendered the image. Of course, I'm not gonna save this one here or save that one here. Uh, we can go ahead and see like the other settings with this time within HDRI image. So we're gonna choose those two, so we can render with each one every time. So let's get started with this one here without. It's gonna be with HDRI image, but without grass. So let's gonna see this one here. How it's gonna be rendered up. Okay, so we can see this one here is like a overlit, I believe, because we have two issues here. Because we have this sun um, object here, there's a sun object, which is used to, we used to say that, I mean, we used to call it sun object, and it's still a sun object. But I mean, in CineRender terminology, this one here is not a sun object. It's we can call this out the infinite light, and this is the way I'm going to use it in this tutorial. So that's why we can see here like we've been like overlit or washed out image. I mean, the image here is like very bright. It's like even here washed out, and the let me just get that back here. Okay, so we can see here we added the lamps because this one is considered lamp to the sunlight, okay, and to the illuminated surfaces, and we ended up with this one here. So let me just take this out, and you see here when we were just like taking this out, we're gonna end up with custom again. So let me just re-render, see the difference between what we just rendered and the photo we're gonna render right now. Okay, it's done here. Let's make a comparison. Seems like the the infinite light didn't do that much of reducing that washing out or like extreme sunlight that we have over there. So we gonna have to reduce this to 100% and to reduce the illuminating surfaces because they add up to all together to 100% as well. And then we're gonna do another render here. Okay, seems like getting better. You can compare this to this, but I think it still needs some more working on. So let's go ahead and reduce the illuminated surfaces for up to 50% of what it is. Now let's do this one here on 90%. Let's see what's going on. Again, We can now check the settings of the HDRI itself. So we can go to sky luminance. It says here 1000. We can go ahead and reduce that up to 500. And let's check the okay. And let's get back to our lightings. It's gonna make that like 50 as well. And give it another render. Okay. Seeing that we're getting better comparing this one here to this one here. However, we still need to downgrade or like letting that down. We can just like check here if there are like any other settings that may causes this thing to do here to happen here. So let me check the physical camera, which is one of the important settings that could happen or like could help increasing the light here. So we have to look to the physical camera as exactly the real like physical camera that the photographers or the architects used. We have here the camera focal stop. This one here, like this has nothing to do with this issue. Usually, the physical camera will help us like having more lights get into the lens by using one of those two settings over here. Say that we have the camera ISO, which is going to have like a lot of lights enter to the film, so we can just reduce this out. Or camera shutter speed, which is usually have like a default value of 130. So 130 with camera ISO of 200, I think it's gonna be a good. For the focal stop here, it's gonna ask like where is the lens should be located in front of the like the sensitive area for taking the photo. So like 4 and up, like from here and up, it's going to give us like a very sharp images. And if you go below 4, it's going to be like blurry. So this would not have anything to do with light. So let me just check another thing here. The gamma is 1.8 here. So let's go ahead and render again and see what we're going to get. So we can see now that it was pretty much it. So it was the camera, the physical camera. So now you were able to see that the physical camera has like a lot of things to do with the light. So I'm gonna actually get this, crank this up back again to 100%, and this one here to 100% as well. Maybe I'm gonna need more. So let's check and see. Okay, so we can see now that we're starting to getting like a live render. I can just like do a couple of things here. Of course, I can increase the light back up to 150. It seems like this is the um, right value that we should keep there earlier. However, let me just get back to the environment here and go to the HDRI setting and then go to the HRI image. If we want this picture to like flip around, as we were just like said earlier, we can just like instead of like 30, let's go and like do a 60 degrees, because this is actually a panoramic um, uh, picture, so we can just like see the difference between what we have right now and what we're gonna how it's gonna appear when we just like finish through that rendering. We can see now like it's a much better, more life. We can go ahead and retouch that by just again um, like increasing light in the using the camera that we just like we were just talking about. And let me just get back to this value here, which was used to be like 1000, and keep it um, as it was before. And I can get back to physical camera, and instead of like having a camera shutter speed of like one like 30th, I can just like do like increase more like by let that like slower shutter speed of 1/50th, so 15th. Um, Actually, I'm happy with the 30th. We can just like increase that using gamma here. Like instead of like 1.8, we can just like do it 1.9 or 2. But I mean, I'm gonna just stick to those for the moment right now. I'm not gonna just render, gonna see those, but I'm gonna save those settings for the moment. So we can just tell now here how the photo was rotated. I mean, like um, around the building over here. I'm sorry. Actually, we're not gonna save any of them. So let me just like do not save it. Do not save it and close all those guys here. All right. And this will conclude the first part of this tutorial, which is the external rendering in addition to the render settings and like just a little bit of lighting. So again, in the next part, I'm gonna get back to the internal rendering or interior rendering, and gonna discover more like regarding lightings and like source of lights, and with like some tricks and how we can just like illuminate the internal settings, and we'll see you there.